Kiki and I have been, that's Kiki Sanford, for those of you of more serious bent. We've been friends since, I guess, we worked on the Skeptologists together in 2008, which was about 1 million years ago. And there she is. Hello, Dr. Kiki.
Hello.
You have a very fancy banner behind you. I compliment you on that.
Thank you. It's my backdrop.
Oh, the backdrop. Very cool.
Yes.
So what's going on? Last time I saw you, you guys were doing your live show in Portland, and I guess that was, 6 months ago or so?
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun getting the Alberta Rose Theatre for an evening so we could do a live show. Justin and Blair came up from the Bay Area in California, and it was associated with Science Talk, which is a science communication conference that I am part of organizing. I'm on the board. So we did that live show, and since then we have been faithfully producing one episode a week, as we do for This Week in Science, and interviewing all sorts of fun people and talking about all the science news, and really hoping, that we continue to grow the show and inspire curiosity in people.
The weekly show thing never ends, right? It's like like Newman on Seinfeld when he's complaining that the mail never stops. It never stops. You've always got next week's show and next week's show and next week's show. God, do you guys work multiple weeks ahead, or do you guys work like one show at a time?
For the actual stories that we talk about, it's week by week, but when I'm working with people for interviews, then
right.
I plan those out in advance.
Yeah.
So I schedule with people sometimes months in advance to make sure they can make it onto the show.
Yeah, scheduling interviews is that's herding cats squared. It's when your show is dependent upon people being available for interviews, it makes it so much harder. Well, heck, I had to get 25 people for this. All organized.
I'm so impressed, actually. I'm looking at your schedule and looking at how you're doing this whole thing. I'm taking inspiration because Twist is coming up on our 20th anniversary of being a show next year.
20th?
20th, because we started as a college radio program on terrestrial radio before we became a podcast. And so 20 years as of next year. But our podcasting estimate is that sometime at the beginning of 2021 is going to be our 800th episode. So, ish. I don't know. We're estimating things here.
Were you with it since the beginning?
I have, yeah. Twist is my brainchild. It's my baby.
I had no idea it was 20 years. I feel so small by comparison with my measly little 13 that I was so proud of until a moment ago.
13 is nothing to scoff at. It's so exciting that you've been continuing to do your show for as long as you have. So many people give it up. They move on to new projects. But when you've got, I think it's when you have a passion for something and you keep finding new material and you're able to keep innovating and keep bringing new content. Sometimes it's like, unless other circumstances come up, why should I stop?
Yeah, there's definitely no shortage or no danger of running out of ideas. That's just it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's the drinking from a fire hose thing. It'll never run out. But in terms of what you just said, with unless something else comes along, in the back of the minds of all of us who do podcasting, we're hoping it's going to lead to something bigger, right? And you and I have worked as much as anyone in trying to make those things happen. Just as you were coming on, I was talking about I can't believe it's 2008 now. That was so long ago, the Skeptologists pilot that we did. And if you'll recall, we had really good success with getting network meetings. And where the road ended in every case was the network exec said two things. Number one, we're going to fire all of your PhD experts and replace them with 20-somethings who believe in ghosts. And number two, we have to have the paranormal explanation has to turn out to be the true one, at least some of the time. Because otherwise the audience is going to know what's going to happen every week and it's not going to be a show. So And you and I spoke when you had the live show, and I came up for that, and we hung out for a little bit. We spoke a little bit about ideas for next level programming, taking it beyond a podcast that might meet those objectives, or at least leave them in the dust. And I am curious to know what thoughts you might have on that, if any, that you would, at a point, willing to share.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a dream of turning twists into, a real, honest to goodness talk show where you sit down and have conversations with scientists, kind of in the vein of late night television, where you have a conversation, but then at the same time bring in comedians to add to the conversation, to make it more entertaining, to add that humor factor. When scientists start talking with too much jargon, maybe bringing it down to earth a little bit so people can understand it, and mixing it up so it's kind of a variety show of sorts.
Now, you were on the current season of Strange Evidence, is that right?
I am, yes.
And I believe they did. They went to everyone who's on that, and they taped about like 10 different topics over the course of a day or two, and then they build their whole season out of all of these interviews, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you did that, I didn't know about it, because if I had, we were going to have a hidden camera and a hidden microphone and record the entire session so that we could compare it to what actually airs. And
Right.
if they misquoted you or edited you out of context, we were going to see if we could include that in Science Friction, the film we're making about that. I'll say nothing about who they might be, but there are 2 people on this season of Strange Evidence for whom we did do that.
Oh, wow.
And so far, they've all been honestly edited. There's been no abuse of the experts. But how has it gone for you so far? Have you seen any of your segments yet?
Have I seen any of them?
Yeah.
So I don't actually have cable, so I haven't seen any episodes.
They'll send them to you, or you can buy them on iTunes or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. People are like, "Oh, I got a text message from one of the parents of my son's friends, like it's a school parent, and I'm sitting at the auto shop right now. Is that you on television?" Like, yep, it is me. I'm like, tell me how it goes. I haven't seen any of these things yet. My whole attitude, I don't know. I just kind of go, oh, I did this. I got paid a little bit. I understand the program. So I was on What on Earth and Strange Evidence, and I know that the show is not a science show. So I know there's going to be creative editing to some degree.
Right.
But at the same time, I had a wonderful experience with the production company, with the producers who came to the house. So I would like to know how it's been edited. From experience with What on Earth, which I was also on, it was very straightforward and was not. There was nothing that was edited out of context. So it's the same production company working on both these projects.
Was What on Earth the kind of the Google Earth one where they look at something weird and decide what it is?
Yeah.
What were some of the ones you talked about? What were some of the subjects?
Talked about a weird red tide on an island that turned out to be a bunch of red crabs. So it was like, of course they always put forward the really extreme, not true hypotheses first. So it looks like a blood tide. It's all this blood. Everybody's afraid of it, and there's superstitions and blah blah blah. It's like, no, it's just crabs. There was another one of the first seasons I was on that was a ghost ship, and that was fun because I got to talk about mobsters and prostitution and some fun stuff in that respect. There were a few that were very biology based, others that were like military secrets. There was one episode with a bit in Kazakhstan, I think, where it was a uranium mine had led to a town turning into a ghost town, and it's in the middle of nowhere, so what is this town? What is it doing there? And those kinds of questions.
Lots of fun.
From a storytelling perspective, I appreciate it because it gets people to look at things from different perspectives, and for the large part, they, on What on Earth at least, for Strange Evidence, like I said, I can't say, but on What on Earth, they did a really good job of, even though they had all these weird out there hypotheses, always coming to a conclusion if there was one to be had, always telling the truth at the end if there was some known explanation. And they didn't continue to wrap it in mystery if the mystery was solved.
So that's been my experience watching all the episodes of Strange Evidence that I've had to watch so far, and that's where I've seen, oh, I know her. What's she doing? I didn't know she was on this. Why didn't she call me? But so far, everyone's been treated well. I didn't compare to the transcripts of what actually happened because we haven't seen any of them appear to endorse a false position, which is what we're looking for. So
I did actually, in shooting at one point, there was I don't remember which show, I can't remember which show it was for, but at one point there was something I said that came across, and I was like, it came across really poorly, and I thought about it and I said, oh, that is going to trigger the animal rights people out there. I need to phrase this differently, because I don't remember the story, but there was something that I said, and the way it was phrased was I knew it was going to get attention. And I asked them, I said, I'd like to rephrase what I'm saying. And the cameraman and the producer, they did a very obvious cut, and they made a statement that the next take was the one that the editors were supposed to take.
Wow, that's very much to their credit. I mean, that's the way people should work. And it's like, why do some do the opposite? It's astounding to me. And so I was really happy to see that they've, I wouldn't say they've turned a corner, because the really obviously deceptive editing is still a very rare thing. I mean, it does happen, but it's very rare. And that's a point that we're trying to be clear about in the film, is that although this does happen, we're not saying that they all do this. It's a practice that we're very critical of, and we're happy whenever we don't see it. But, I mean, you shouldn't have to be happy when you don't see it. You should be shocked when you do see it, instead of just kind of learning to accept that that's what they're going to do. And, so many of the experts that we've got in the film, their stories are, it's shocking, but it's sad. It's shocking, but it's sad.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, there's reality television. I was just watching a clip that somebody posted today of a Florida-based reality show from a few years ago that is something about a tow truck. So this tow truck driver goes around towing people's cars.
Florida man, Florida man on wheels, right?
Yeah. So in this clip, there's this big lady tow truck driver, and she's towing this woman's car, and the woman's like, I have a boyfriend, he's gonna pay for this, and all this stuff. And then one thing leads to another. The woman whose car is getting towed, she ends up backing her car away and hitting the tow truck driver, knocking the tow truck driver off of the second floor of a parking garage. They're like, you killed her, and then there's this whole drama ensues. But the whole thing is obviously scripted and staged and completely unreal. I mean, they set up shots, and they went through a very thought out process to get to a final product. And I still wonder how many people look at these programs that are very definitely reality TV and think that they're reality, really.
Yeah.
Or if they look at it and they look at it as entertainment and know that it is scripted, or it's at least improvised and not actually, they have hidden cameras watching this.
I mean, you see, that highlights the problem that the TV producers face, because they know that if they just go out and follow Tow Truck Man on his daily night work, nothing interesting is likely to happen. Just as the ghost hunting shows, if you just go to a haunted house and film whatever ghosts happen to pop out, you're not going to have anything to point your camera at. And I had this conversation with, I don't remember the production company, but they were going to go down to Mexico with one of these guys who's really popular in these kind of mystery shows. And they wanted me to go along, and they were telling me that they wanted me to just be there and suggest, well, maybe it's not aliens or something, but then appear to be convinced at each episode. It's like, well, yeah, maybe it is aliens. And I told him that's stupid and I wasn't going to do that and why. And I gave him some ideas for the show that I thought would be a better show, but I don't know, that was a waste of breath, obviously. Why did I even do that? But I brought up that exact issue with him. It says, you know that you're going to get to this cave and there's not going to be any alien artifacts in the cave. You know that, right? He says, yeah, I don't care. And they plan to go down there, and he just told me this outright. They're just going to make it seem like there's something really crazy around the next corner of the cave, and just keep doing these cliffhangers based on nothing, because they know there's nothing to point the camera at, so they have to go out there in advance with a plan to make something out of nothing. To me, that's a bad idea.
The thing I do not appreciate about this is that they borrow the credibility of the people who are appearing in their programs when really they're asking these people to act. Mm-hmm. And so it besmirches, to use one of my favorite words, it kind of is a stain on some of the credibility of experts who go on these programs, because if you go and you say, well, I guess it could be aliens, and have to act like you're slightly convinced, people who know you are going to say, what just happened? Where did Brian go?
Oh, yeah. Half the people who we interview in Science Friction, they say that as soon as the show aired, their phone started ringing, and they're one of their colleagues like, what the heck did you just tell the Discovery Channel, or whatever it was? So, you definitely do that at your own risk. So,
absolutely.
So I want to ask you this. You remember, well, let me go back to the skeptologists. So a minute ago I told you what, I repeated the story of what the executives all said when we brought them the idea of skeptologists. So put yourself now, let's say you've been fortunate enough to become a network executive, and you understand the need to make television that's going to get eyeball shares. It has to be interesting. It has to be something that's going to really wow the viewers. But you're also you, and you don't want to make a show based on nonsense. And if we came into your office with the skeptologists, now the concept had plenty of weaknesses, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
What would you say? What would your feedback have been? Do you have any ideas on how you might tweak that concept into something that would work a little bit better? And just for the sake of anyone who might not know, the skeptologists was, maybe I already said this, it was, we had the team of skeptical and science superheroes. We called it like Batman meets Queer Eye. So it's like they get the bat signal, and they jump in the Batmobile, and they go racing off to the scene of the pseudoscience to debunk it. And each one had their particular specialty. You were the bird brain anatomist, because you always have to have one of those along. And then we had the magician and the mentalist and the medical doctor and the physicist. We had all the disciplines covered. So I bring that idea into your office, and we tell you, we're going to debunk every idea that we go see. What do you say? How do you fix that as a concept?
I think that it needs to get a little bit more of the Mythbusters treatment. That it needs I don't know if you saw the White Rabbit project that Carrie Byron ended up doing.
No, I didn't.
You're going to have your team of people that are doing the debunking. There needs to be the fun of actually doing the experiments. Taking away I guess there is a certain aspect that's a bit mean-spirited of, haha, I'm getting one over on you. So is there a way that you can do it in a more positive manner? So there's not so it's not these people are smarter than these other people, but how do you do it in a way where you bring along the subject that you're talking about?
So how do you do that? What's the answer?
Yeah.
This has kind of been the white whale that we've all been pursuing and trying to crack this nut. Is how do you come up with an idea that's both commercial and true? to put it simply.
It definitely has to have that entertainment factor, and I do think that a lot of the programs that have been popular over the last several years have a certain aspect of the engineering or the maker movement involved in them. So it's, maybe there is some aspect of so say the Skeptologist pilot, we went to a health food store and the person there was telling us about the many benefits of wheatgrass juice. So maybe instead of staying in the store and, doing a lot in the store, you talk to the person, get the information about what they believe and why, and then you go back and you say, all right, these are the beliefs. Let's make some hypotheses and let's test them. And then you divvy out into different teams, and maybe each team has a different hypothesis that they have to test. And it's a competition between the teams. So then it turns into a competition show to figure out if any of the beliefs are correct.
And you remember that's not too far afield from the little teaser that we shot in Beverly Hills a couple of years ago, which Ryan and I are still editing.
Awesome.
We're going to take one person out who shall not be named and put one person in, and we're going to try and figure that out. That's me, by the way, the person I'm going to take out. So
changing plans.
So, the concept I still feel was really, really solid. I guess I shouldn't talk about it because I don't want to say what the concept was because we are still working on it. But I think that was one possible solution to our little problem. Remains to be seen if anyone agrees with that or not.
Yeah, I know. I feel like the core of skepticism, like when people say, hear the phrase "I'm a skeptic," it means people, what they hear is you're a doubter.
Yep.
But what you want to get across to people in an educational way is that skepticism is curiosity. It's wanting to see the evidence, to know how something and why something works the way that it does. So in a sense, if you can instead of, working it around skepticism, tie it more to curiosity and asking questions about the world. Yeah. That I think that can go a lot farther.
Do you remember the show, Natalia Reagan's show, the Bigfoot, what was it called?
I don't remember, but
the $10 million Bigfoot bounty.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that handled it very well in that they had the reality show type teams, these teams of two people, none of whom had any idea about field work, doing any kind of collection work in the field. They didn't know anything about anthropology or primatology or anything, but they were firm Bigfoot believers. And so they had two actual real scientists make them go out and do all these tests, and they fired one of them each week. They wanted to fire all of them each week, but they were only allowed to fire one. But that show did a really good job.
You're a bad scientist. You're fired.
Because it gave the networks what they wanted in that someone was getting axed. And then it had the scientists come forward and explain why they got axed. So that was a great way to force the real science to be an important part of the storyline there. So I really loved that show.
Yeah, that's a cool way to do it. I mean, it comes back to, it's the I don't know, what's the name of that? Survivor. It's a competition. Yeah. It's the who's gonna make it. Right. Project Runway is a very successful show, has the same kind of model. Survivor, very successful. This competition challenger model. I think it's something that people love watching competition between other people. And so if you're not going to do a strictly educational documentary type show, you have to look at what are the popular entertainment formats and how do you fit into that.
And that's certainly one that's kind of perennially popular. If you've got a reality show that's a competition and someone gets fired each week, you're pretty much guaranteed to get a slot.
Yeah, I think we should get a whole bunch of skeptics and have them do American Gladiator.
Just kill one of them each week? I think a lot of people would love to see that show.
Fight to the death of knowledge.
Well, on that note, we're going to have to cut it off because we're out of time. But thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you and talk to you. And I wish we could have longer. Next time, I live like 3 hours away from Portland now, so
I know.
we need to
my
connect
brother
more
lives in
often.
Redmond. There is no excuse.
And you visit him all the time, and you never come by.
I know. Yeah, we will make this happen. Let's connect more. I would absolutely love that. And thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your anniversary special and your fundraiser, your telethon.
Thank you.
I hope that people continue to donate. I think that's great. And I hope for many more years of Skeptoid.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye. See you later.
Bye. Thank you, Brian.